Up next, we have Renzo Vicari from Amadeus. He's here and he's going to be talking to Matt Muirleisen, Senior Director of Network Planning at Southwest, about how network planning and scheduling have changed in the new world and how they're now working together on new approaches to optimization using Amadeus' Sky Suite.
Well, welcome and good morning, good afternoon. I am Matt Muirleisen, Senior Director at Network Planning at Southwest Airlines. And joining me today is Renzo Vicari, Senior Vice President of Amadeus for Sky Suite. And we wanted to just chat today a little bit about our journey through the last 6 months in the COVID era and really talk about what we've done, how we've gotten through some of these times and all the uncertainties that are in front of us and even behind us a little bit. And really talk about what does that mean for us? What has that done for us? And how do we get through some of these times looking forward? So it raises a lot of questions. Obviously, everybody in here has questions and has had questions in the past about how COVID has changed their life, both I'm sure at work and at home. But we'll talk about some of the questions that come up when we start talking about this COVID impact on network planning, Southwest Airlines a little bit, and even how Amadeus has started to solve some of those problems for us. Questions come up like what does my fleet look like? What do I need to do with that? How do I build new schedules? What kind of capacity do I need? How do I change schedules that are out there? What data do I even use? The data is the hardest part. Nobody understands what data is relevant, how to get new data, what can I use from history. So a lot of history is thrown out now. And so trying to understand that path, that line of question is what we're going to talk about a little bit today and how we've tried to solve some of this. We don't have all the answers. We know that. We're working through it just like everybody else is. But we wanted to talk about some of the solves and solutions that we've developed. So network planning and scheduling is kind of a path that we go through. And so I'll describe kind of what we're trying to do. And if you've got questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat, and we'll talk about them at the end, or we'll have a live Q&A after the presentation. So inside of network planning, we're trying to evaluate capacity. We're trying to understand where to fly, how often to fly. Then you move into design. How do you connect would you have a set of flights? How do you connect them? We'll talk about optimization and clean sheet optimization here in a few minutes, and then we'll talk about once you have a schedule out there, times are changing. Things change so rapidly that by the time you publish the schedule, part of it's no longer valid. So then what do you do with that? So we've got a process with adapt optimization that we're adapting our schedule once it's published to try to meet the needs of our customers, try to steer the demand in the appropriate places, because your schedule is the most amount of revenue you can generate as an airline. That once you publish a schedule, you're locked in at your revenue potential. So how do you adjust that revenue potential as you see new data coming in? The new approach, the days of bringing your old schedule, your last year's schedule in, publishing that, rolling it out, letting that sit out there, and then just kind of making small tweaks is no longer valid. What we've found is that we now are changing our schedule so rapidly and so often that we're using what we call clean sheet scheduling. And that clean sheet gives us the ability to change our schedule by season. And our schedule doesn't have to look like what it looked like before. So you're then bringing in a new capacity set, all new constraints, all new parameters, and developing a schedule for a small subset of the year. And you can do that as many times as you want. So that for us has been the big key in being able to change the schedule and change how Southwest thinks. We're now moving into an era and COVID and also the MAX grounding has forced us into this a little bit, and we're looking at adapt optimization. So it used to be Southwest would publish schedules, even with clean sheet, we'd publish them and we wouldn't manipulate them very much. Now, obviously, that's not been the case. That's not the case for anybody today, And so we're looking at at what we call adapt optimization. How do you adapt a schedule that's already published and make it look like what you need your demand profile to look like going forward with any new data that comes in? How often can you do this? Well, it depends on how often, what your other systems, how it works with your other systems like RM and reservations, operations, crew resources, those kind of things. Those are all things that you have to take into account, but you are able to change your revenue profile through adapting. So I'll turn it over to Renzo to kind of go through how Amadeus has been solving some of these problems, and then we'll talk a little bit about the problems and how Southwest is working through them.
Hello everyone. This is Renzo Vaccari, Senior Vice President of Amadeus. Thanks, Matt. So I think with every crisis, there's going to be opportunity as well, and we think that this is where technology can really help and can help airlines navigate through this process. So new technology, new science, optimization is really going to play a critical role. What we wanted to do now was really spend a little bit of time talking about some specific key questions, key challenges. So let's start with the first one, and this is all around, like Matt said, how do we optimize our network planning and scheduling in this new world, in this new normal? So let's start first with the basics of building your schedule. So with massive changes of demand, then you are forced to have to look at your fleet and your schedule and have to resize because the game has always been to match capacity with demand, and there has been massive changes in demand as at least I've never seen it in my lifetime. So what this means is that you are forced to have to build a schedule from scratch, because like Matt said, the traditional way of doing this, which is I take my my schedule from either last month or last year, and I just adjust and tweak that schedule a little bit, just doesn't work because the shock in demand has been so large that old schedule is irrelevant. The schedule that was optimized for when you wanted to fly 200 planes is obviously in not the same schedule, not the right schedule. If you only want to fly 50 planes, it's just too different. So starting from kind of the old base schedule doesn't work. You need to start from scratch. No question. Everyone is doing that. The question is how, right? How do you do that? Because it sounds really easy to say, I'm going to rebuild my schedule from scratch. But there was a reason why the old approach existed. If you think of a schedule is like a puzzle with thousands of pieces. Having to redo a puzzle of thousands, if not millions of pieces from scratch is very hard. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort. So this is where we think that technology can really help, and we're talking about new technology that can actually help you build a schedule from scratch. So how does it work exactly? The good news is that the fundamentals of network planning and scheduling haven't changed. The fundamentals of matching capacity to demand are still there. The fundamentals that you need to adhere to certain operational characteristics in terms of block times, in terms of turn times, everything still applies. The actual block times might be different. The actual turn times might be different because you need to add some extra time to clean airplanes, for example, in between flights. But the underlying concepts of how you build your schedules are the same. The idea, though, is that we need new technology that can handle the new scale. Legacy technology always started with a base schedule. And the reason for that is that it makes the problem smaller, and there are less variables to solve. But like I said, there is new technology now new algorithms, new science that can actually build a schedule from scratch. And that's what we call clean sheet scheduling. And it basically starts with, with a clean sheet, no schedule. It starts with a frequency plan. So a list of origins, of markets, of O&Ds, number of flights per market. And then the machine will go through all of the possible combinations. It's looking at everything at the same time. So retiming, rerouting, refleeting, all of those variables at the same time. Yes, we're talking about millions, billions, trillions of combinations, depending on the size of your airline. But technology is there now that can actually solve that problem for you. The objective function is the same. You're trying to maximize your profit. Profit is a function of traffic and fare minus cost. And that technology then is able to, by putting the flights at the right time, by putting the right capacity on every flight, the right fleet assignment on every flight, be able to maximize profit. I know it sounds too good to be true, but the technology exists, and there's even airlines today that are using this technology. And Southwest, for example, is using this technology, has been using this technology for several years. And the technology really wasn't designed for a pandemic. The technology was designed to be able to optimize your schedules and your network planning, basically matching capacity to demand. And so instead of having one schedule per year, maybe two schedules per year, one for summer, one for winter, the idea was to be able to change your schedules more often, maybe once every month, again, to try to match capacity with demand. That was the original intention of the technology, but it certainly applies and it can help now during the pandemic as airlines have to rebuild their schedules from scratch. And again, it sounds too good to be true, but Matt, why don't you explain, why don't you share a little bit with everyone your experiences, your direct experiences in Southwest with the technology?
Our network has been changing and evolving a lot. We have a lot of airports that have over 100 flights. We've got a lot of connecting structures in our big airports, and so we have the ability to change our schedule. We require this ability basically, and so we started this back in 2005. We started with our first optimization of our schedule, and it's evolved a lot. We started working with the Sky Suite back in 2013 and 14, and we've been optimizing on a product called SkyMax since probably 2015 or 16 now. And so we've used this, like Renzo said, for obviously our standard practice outside of pandemics and groundings and those kind of things. But we have the ability now to develop this tool. We spent a lot of time developing it to meet our needs, and I think it's been extremely valuable for us to get to the spot we're in now.
Thank you, Matt, so much. Let's move on now to kind of what happens after you come up with this clean sheet schedule. Because I'm afraid that because of the current environment, even just clean sheet scheduling alone is not going to be enough, because you're going to need to adjust your schedule. So in the current environment, what's happening is that the inputs are changing. So you build your schedule, even if you have clean sheets scheduling, and even if you can build this perfect schedule, this beautiful schedule, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months before day of departure. What's going to happen, though, is that because the environment is so uncertain and so volatile, that demand might change. Borders might open and close. Number of aircraft can change. So there's going to be enough change in between the time you publish your schedule to when you actually need to fly your schedule, that you're going to have to adjust your schedule. And this is where the second capability comes in terms of now again, how do you adjust your schedule based on new information? And we call that adapt optimization. And this is technology now that it's similar to clean sheet scheduling. So we leverage the same algorithms, but we tweak the algorithms so that now these algorithms can also start with an existing base schedule. The key here, though, is that well, two things. Why do you need to start with a base schedule? Why don't you do clean sheet again? If you have clean sheet, keep clean sheeting every time. The issue with that is that now you've already published the schedule. You started flying the schedule. Now you have passengers booked on this schedule. So I don't think you want to do another clean sheet, even though that is possible. And what you really want to do now is you want to adapt that schedule, which means that now we tweak the algorithms so you can use that base schedule and that you produce with your clean sheet optimizer and go ahead and adapt that schedule. Like I said, we call that kind of an adapt optimizer. And I think the key with any adapt optimization is going to be the controls that you have. So you are going to need technology that allows you to support multiple objectives. So when I want to adapt, do I want to maximize profit? Do I want to maximize revenue? Do I want to minimize costs? You need consistency. Do you want to force consistency on departure times, on fleet assignments, on rotations? You need a reduction mode. Are you going to want to cancel flights or not? So the controls for managing the number of changes are going to be the key in adapt optimization to be able to allow you to really be able to re-optimize your schedule and then end up with a new optimized schedule based on the latest information. Again, Matt, if I can ask you maybe to share a little bit your experiences with adapt optimization as well and how that is working in Southwest.
So adapt at Southwest has become an integral part of what we're doing. Obviously, with like we talked about with the COVID pandemic and also the max grounding, we've had the ability to, or the opportunity, I'll use, to change our schedule quite often and frequently, as everybody has. And so what we were looking for was a way to like Renzo said, build consistency in our schedule. So you don't want to publish a schedule and then change everybody and have to reaccom all your customers that are booked. What you want to do is you want to make a set of changes. And our initial view to this was they would be a small set of changes. How do we react to a small change in demand? How do we react to maybe adding new flights, or maybe we have a route or two that don't perform as well as we want to, and we want to add some new routes. That was our impetus of adapt optimization. Now, with this pandemic, obviously it's changed a lot. It's now how do we change our entire schedule? How do we pull 50-60% of our capacity out of our schedule? Sometimes we go back to clean sheet in this pandemic. Sometimes we use adapt optimization. So that's really where Southwest is focused on, is trying to develop and have our ability to maintain consistency through our schedule that helps our operations, that helps our customers. We want to build consistent products, but we also may need the ability to change based on changing borders or changing demand profiles, or certain regions of the country that may lose their demand in a quick window. Those are the things that we're reacting to with adapt optimization. The other thing that we're using it for is our ability to adjust day of week even. So when you build clean sheet, you can build it for 7 days if you want to, or you can build it all the same, and you can adapt in and out of certain days of week based on trying to again maximize demand and profitability. So that's how Southwest is currently in the process of looking through this, and has the ability to try to drive through some of these things.
Thanks, Matt. And I think the last thing we wanted to address was this issue of data and what data to use. is there any data that can be used? Obviously, these advanced new models, like clean sheet scheduling, like adapt optimization, obviously these models need data, need inputs, and is there anything out there? And I think the good news here is that the short answer is yes. There is lots of data that can be used. So while certainly data from last year is not going to be relevant, and that is not going to be applicable. So using historical MIDT data from a year ago is not useful. Airlines have access to a massive amount of data, from shopping data to search data that can be used, where you can correlate shopping levels to, or certain levels of shopping levels to X number of bookings in Y days ahead of schedule, to revenue management and data. Specifically, I want to discuss the use of revenue management data here, and the integration between, or a tighter integration, if you will, between network planning and revenue management. So the idea here is that you would use your revenue management data, so closer in, more relevant data, to then go ahead and feed these models. The idea is that you would use that as the input to these models, and kind of a quick example, as you can see on the slide. You have two aircraft, you have 6 flights, or 2 lines of flying, and by just swapping the aircraft, so the flights or the line of flying that was assigned to the 320 gets assigned to the 319, and vice versa. So a very simple swap based on newer demand, that or more accurate demand that you can get from your forecasting system. Then that will, just even that simple swap would allow you to be able to capture significant more demand, because you are spilling less passengers. So the idea here is that you need to use the right demand to feed these models, and clearly revenue management demand is one of those sources. We've shared lots of information. If you are interested in more information, if you're interested in understanding a little bit more about all of these things, there is lots of information available. We have several white papers, several podcasts related to the topic. Matt, any final thoughts from your side?
No, I think you've covered it well. I think the tools that Amadeus has provided have given us a step up in our ability to kind of cope with what we're seeing today. Nobody can predict the future, and nobody's been able to adapt as well as we would like to. But I think these tools and the opportunity, the data changes, those things to think through these problems has been extremely helpful for us since we had some of these in place already.
Thank you so much for that, Matt. It is fantastic to hear how Southwest is using this technology, has been using this technology now for a while, to go ahead and optimize your network. With that, we really would like to hear from everyone in the audience. So we will be opening up a live Q&A.
Okay, so thank you very much for that really interesting exposition of the work you've been doing together at Southwest. It's really fascinating to see how you're adapting these business processes to the new normal. I just want to a quick apology to people who maybe are watching these streams. Our live Q&As are going out with maybe a 20-second lag or so. So it's difficult for us to gauge exactly when they're going to cut in. But hopefully you'll all be joining us, and you'll be able to send us your questions in live for Renzo and Matt. Now, we saw a couple of questions coming through during your initial discussion. I think one of the things that's intrigued people is this notion of a clean sheet, because that's not a normal process. I mean, scrubbing your schedules and starting at bare metal is not a sort of a usual MO. So can we maybe have a little bit of a deep dive on that and how that works?
Yeah,
Yeah,
perfect.
so
Do you
go
want to
ahead,
go
Renzo.
ahead and get started, Matt? Go ahead.
No,
You
absolutely.
get started.
Go ahead.
Okay. So first of all, hello everyone, and it's great to be here. In terms of clean sheet, I think it's kind of very interesting, and I think there's kind of good news and bad news. The bad news is that with the massive change in demand, it forces you, right? You have no choice, but it forces you to have to resize your schedule, reduce your fleet.
Mm.
And the old traditional way of doing this is just not going to work. The traditional way is based on starting from an existing schedule. So starting from your schedule, either last month's schedule or last year's schedule, but starting from an existing schedule.
Mm.
And the reason for that, there's a very kind of valid reason for that. In that building a schedule is very hard. And think of it as a puzzle, a puzzle with trillions of pieces.
Mm.
So having to restart, and rebuild this puzzle from scratch is very hard, very time consuming. And the idea here is not just to come up with any solution, but the idea is to come up with the best solution, maximizing some objective function. So then the challenge of how do you rebuild the schedule from scratch, it becomes very real in this new world and this new normal.
Mm.
And the good news, though, is that the fundamentals of the problem haven't changed. The fundamentals of airline scheduling haven't changed. You're still trying to match demand with capacity. You're still looking at the trade-off between non-stop and connecting traffic. You're still looking at the fundamentals of your operational constraints in terms of block times and turn times. The values themselves might have changed, right? So your turn times might be a little bit longer now because you need to account for extra time to clean the aircraft. But the fundamentals of the constraints haven't changed. The fundamentals of the objective function haven't changed in terms of either maximizing profit or maximizing revenue.
Mm.
So the good news is that we have been able to now invent this new technology that allows you, to actually do exactly that. So with new technology that allows you to do the heavy lifting, the new technology can go ahead and enumerate all of the possible combinations. And again, we're talking about, depending on the size of your schedule, millions, billions, trillions of combinations, because you're talking about every possible combination of a flight departure time, a fleet assignment, an aircraft routing. So there's a lot of possible combinations, but this is exactly where artificial intelligence and new optimization intelligence can help.
Right.
And in that scenario, if you now have the right technology to be able to then build schedules from scratch, then you can adapt to changes a lot faster.
Yeah, and I think that adapting, I mean, clearly it's great that this technology is advancing and helping us do new things, but the capability is people, process, and technology. So Matt, how did the people and the process adapt to this?
Yeah, we've actually been doing it at Southwest for over 10 years in some form or another, but obviously things have changed a lot on us in the last, I'll say 2 years, because for us, the max grounding was our first foray into changing our schedule in a smaller fashion, than what we're doing now. But clean sheet optimization and even what we're building right now called adapt optimization really allows you to change on the fly and adjust to the demand shifts that are no longer is it seasonal demand shifts. You've got COVID related demand shifts. You've got other shifts that as in the United States, as you have hotspots pop up or you have quarantines put in place, now you have artificial demand shifts that you have to adjust for. And so you're now taking stuff out of Hawaii, or you're taking stuff out of the New York area. Maybe Florida becomes a hotspot, and you have to reduce your Florida traffic that is naturally high for seasonality, right. But yet the outcome of that is an artificial change. Right. So you're able to readjust and redevelop your schedule on the fly that you've never needed to, never wanted to, but now you have to do.
Yeah, oh, that's interesting.
I think it's also interesting interesting in what Matt just said, in that I think we keep talking about this new normal. So I think it really depends, right? So business as usual or new normal really depends, and that depends on what your process was. So for some airlines, this will be a new process. For some other airlines, like Southwest, and there's others as well. They were already doing clean sheet scheduling before. I think like Matt said, the scale of this is different because of that massive dramatic change in demand, but the process is the same.
Yeah. So we have a question from Oleg Kit at Finnair, who's asking, can we talk a bit more about the data and demand exchange between revenue management and schedule optimization, and how is that different to perhaps more traditional approaches?
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick and then I'll let Renzo finish up. But I think for us, what we've learned is that the old data sources, the old information that was shared back and forth, I know for us, we didn't change our schedule very often post publication. So your booking data was nice to see, but we didn't go re-optimize around booking data.
Right.
Never done that before. Now we're starting to do some of those things. You're starting to make close-in changes of what's working, what's not working. We're now, because we have a newer forecast, we're now able to share our forecast with RM, and it becomes more useful, more relevant because it's closer in.
Right.
I think the opportunities that we're seeing right now to share that data back and forth and adjust the schedule on the fly is extremely helpful. And so I think we're now on a path where, so I've been in network planning for 20 years at Southwest, and we've never had this back and forth with RM like we do right now, just to try to understand what's going on, try to get more accurate information. Now, I will say that feeding that forecast to get a more accurate forecast has been a challenge in itself, and I think we talked about that a little bit.
Right.
But you're constantly trying to adjust your market sizes and those kind of things to adjust for what we were talking about a while ago of the. So I will say some of it's irrational, some of it's is regulatory demand. Like we said in Hawaii, those kind of things. So you're always trying to adjust for what's going on in the environment, not just what's going on with the people flying. So I think that's been trying to get those two teams on the same page with what adjustments do they see, what adjustments, trying to get the forecast right has been the biggest key. Yeah.
But this sounds like those data feedback loops, they're working in shorter cycles, but actually improved as well, like that communication, that flow of data.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We've improved a whole lot more than we ever were.
That's really good. Renzo, maybe just a last word from you. We've got about a minute left.
Yeah, I think that integration. So talking about the integration, always been important, both revenue management and flight scheduling, network planning, trying to optimize the same things. Looking at demand, looking at traffic, revenue, the commercial side. So that integration always been important, more important than ever. One, in terms of the data and sharing the data and using the revenue management data, because that's the best signal of demand at this point. So using last year's market sizes, again, is just not going to work. So that becomes very important. And then even sharing some of the parameters. So both areas are trying to forecast, that both areas are simulating the same sort of parameters. So the ability to then be able to use some data from revenue management to optimize the network planning parameters and vice versa. And I would just finish, Bert, with, I think with every crisis, there's opportunity. And I think there are going to be huge opportunities here in terms of changing mindset, changing processes. To be able to maximize your outputs, your results.
Oh, that's really good. And thank you both for coming along and telling us how you've been adapting to all of this. I think it's really fascinating for our audience. And obviously, we wish you both well in your endeavors and keeping Southwest flying efficiently. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate
Have a great conference.
Cheers.
Yes, enjoy.